All right, here we are again. Eric Vickery, All Star Dental Academy with Dr. Michael Goldberg, Practice Perfect Systems, and it is December of 2022. I can't believe how fast this year has flown by. And appropriately, today's fireside chat is going to be what can we do to make sure we have a successful 2023? All right, take it away.
So, so I think one of the things that most dentists don't spend enough time doing is thinking. Not that they don't think, but
Mm,
we're so focused on the battle that often we don't take a step back and strategize. So I think that, strategizing is important. I think New Year's resolutions in general are probably not worthwhile,
mm,
but I think goals
mm.
are, and how you're going to make those goals happen is really the key. So I like goals to be smart. I like them
Mhm,
to be specific,
mhm.
um, reasonable, actionable, um, timely. But how are you going to do that? And, what are the resources you're going to need? What are the action steps that you need to take? I had a conversation today with a client, and I know you and I agree about this. Involving your team, or at least appropriately involving your team in with key meetings, both strategic and tactical, are really important. And strategic has to come before tactical.
Mm.
So that's a mistake that doctors really make. I go to a weekend course and I come back with all these great ideas. And on Monday, I tell people, we're going to do this, 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 and this. How does that work?
Go for it. Ready, go.
And your team invariably looks at you and say, okay, he's making or she's making me more work.
Mhm.
It's all about what it is for me.
Yeah.
So,
So let's go back into this. So what I heard, saying work on your business, not just in your business. You're right. As operations, dentists are in operations. They're producers. They're not the business owner that stands back and manages their business and their team to make sure it gets done properly. They're in it. And so you have to be on purpose, on purpose about creating time to focus in on not only what you want to accomplish, but how are you going to do that? And then you're going to get it going. Love it. Strategize. So goals are worthwhile. Use the SMART analogy: specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, with a time frame. I use smarter with the ER on the end. I picked this up somewhere. Evaluate and then reward or readjust if they're not good. So smarter goals. So I think what you measure, you improve. So once you get the target, you create that goal action plan and you say, okay, small steps. We're not saying double your practice in 1 year. That's not what we're saying, but there are things that you want to achieve, and if you're not growing, you're declining. We know this. So there's only growth is the only option as a business owner. There is no, hey, I'm just going to relax. It won't work. It's all going to fade. People will leave. The highest disengaged employee is one that doesn't have opportunity for growth in the United States. So we're at 26% engagement in the United States. 26? No, I might be saying that wrong. 36% according to Gallup. So in the Strengths Finder stuff. So they do a worldwide one and a US one. Either way, we're about a third of people are engaged. That means 2/3 of people don't know how to be engaged because they don't have opportunity for growth. So when you set aside growth strategies, those goals has to be just that, a strategy. How are we going to do this? Not just what the goal is, not just how you're going to accomplish it, But why? Why is it important for us to do this? Because some employees are going to look at it like, oh, you just want more money, doctor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so important point. So doctors wear three hats.
Mm-hmm.
They're the technician hat, the
Mm-hmm.
producer hat, manager, the manager hat, and they're the owner hat. And each one of those hats requires time and unique skill sets. And as dentists, we're not trained in the owner or manager hats. We're only trained in technician hats. You know, as an interesting story, I go on faculty right after I graduate from my residency program, and it becomes painfully obvious to me a year or two in that I don't know how to teach. I was never taught how to teach. So I went to the dean. I said, you know, I'm a dentist. I graduated with a DMD degree. That didn't include learning how to teach anybody. Are there resources that I can go to learn how to communicate better with my students who were at the time? So I graduated young. I mean, my students were the same age as I was. So it's not as if I had this authority.
Mm-hmm.
And I took a couple of courses.
Mm-hmm.
I took a couple of ed courses at Teachers College, so that I learned how to do something that I didn't know how to do. But dentists don't know, oftentimes just don't have the time or the awareness that, oh my God, there's a skill set that I just don't know. And I see this really apparent in their hiring of office managers. I don't know what your experience has been, but what we normally see is we see office managers being sort of brought up through the ranks of the dental team until they get to this point where they're running the office because they know everything about the office,
Mm-hmm.
but maybe they don't have the management training.
Mm-hmm.
And that sometimes is an impediment to growth. You know, I'm a big fan of Vern Harnish's Scaling Up. So, you know, one of the principles in scaling up is to go from, you know, X number of dollars to X plus number of dollars. You need certain skill sets. You need certain people to enable that to happen.
Yeah.
And that's challenging. So, you know, sort of knowing what you don't know.
Yeah.
You know, and then learning. All these skills are learnable.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
there isn't a leader gene. There isn't a manager gene, right?
Yep. Yet all leaders enter this world the same way. Yes. So it's so funny. You talked about technician, uh, producer, manager, owner, right? And so I've always learned it as, I think it was from Tony Robbins. Every business needs an entrepreneur, a manager, leader, and an artist. Well, the dentist got the artistry down. Okay. That's in your analogy, that's the producer is the artist. Then the owner, entrepreneur, right? Owners got to be entrepreneurs. You got to be entrepreneurial. Yeah, I'm gonna start a business, but I'm not an entrepreneur. You started a business, you own a business, you're an entrepreneur. And then the leader, you know, that's the manager leader thing that you're talking about, and say, okay, I'm gonna hire an office manager to delegate that. And yet every team member looks the dentist as the leader.
So that's an important distinction. The dentist does not necessarily have to be the leader.
And how do you set that up so that they don't see you as, hey, you got to come to me with every single problem and you're going to only listen to me and all that? It's
Well,
empowerment.
then you have a business that owns you
Mm-hmm.
rather than you owning a business.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a big distinction. Dentists paint themselves into a box of being indispensable to the business.
Mm-hmm.
And then what happens when they're not there? Or and there's so much value, equity value in being indispensable, of not being indispensable, because that means the practice is ultimately transferable. Now, DSOs know this,
Mm-hmm.
so I don't know what the statistics are. Maybe you do. So DSOs used to require 2 to 3 years of servitude after a sale.
Yeah. So if I'm the dentist and I'm selling my practice DSO, I've got to stay on for 3 to 5 years for to
Well,
earn that big payout.
so now it's going up to 3 to 5 years. It used to be
Mm-hmm.
2 to 3,
Mm-hmm.
and they've gotten burned because of this exact
Yeah.
situation we're talking about, where
Yeah.
the dentist has painted him or herself into this role of being indispensable.
Yeah.
And that's a major source of um, upset and consternation on the part of dentists when they do sell,
Mm-hmm.
because all of a sudden they think, oh, I don't have to worry about this anymore. I sold it to the DSO. DSO is going to take care of it.
Depend.
No,
They bought it so that
it
you would keep
doesn't
taking.
work.
That's why they want you in there for 3 to 5 years. Yeah, that's why they don't want to change the name on the front of the building. Yeah. So how does this relate? I've been taking some good notes here. You talked about the office manager. Just working there. Super worker turns into supervisor. That's always a big, phrase that you hear, and doesn't necessarily work. They're not necessarily leadership. So how do you transition as the dentist out of, hey, I'm your leader, to now listen to this person too, in addition to me, or in place of me, listen to this person as your leader? How do they create success in 2023 in a growth format to have this person, whatever type of team lead, it could be admin lead, it could be clinical lead, to be enthroned? I'm going to
So
dethrone myself and enthrone them.
so I think it requires self-awareness. First of all, sorry,
That's okay.
it requires
Self-awareness. Yeah.
well, I know you like assessments,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
I love assessments.
Yep.
Actually, my grandson was just given a strengths assessment.
I love StrengthsFinder.
Yeah, his school was given a grant, so he did it, and I'm going to see him later on tonight. We're going to go over it a little bit.
That's
um,
awesome.
it is. So I think that it starts with what are the strengths that you have on your team already? What's yours? What are some of the team strengths? And strategizing about how you can use those strengths.
Yep.
Uh,
Absolutely.
that's part of strategic planning.
So we use StrengthsFinder 2.0 and through Gallup, and we use that in our coaching. We use that in our level 2 course. We do our masterclass 2, and we take DISC as a personality, a communication device, a basic understanding of who I am. If you haven't done that, I would do that first, and then you get a StrengthsFinder, which has 4 domains, which sound a lot like DISC. Has executing, D, dominant, executor, get job done. It has influencing, I, influence. It has relationship management, which is S, steadiness. And it has strategic thinking, which is C, conscientious. And you put these 34 strengths underneath these 4 domains, and you look at your disc and you go, oh my gosh, look at it. There's not exact science, but you can look at it and see, oh my gosh, my disc personality into these top 5 strengths they give you of the 34, and you learn what you're good at, your tendency to say, well, what am I not good at? And I want to get better at those things. What are my bottom 5 of my 34? And it's like, no, that's not what this is about. This is about using your strengths to get better in all areas of life. So, yes, where are you weak, but how do you put people around you who are strong in those areas, who can do that for you? And if you don't have someone strong in those categories, please don't put them in the role that requires them to be strong in those categories. If you have someone who doesn't know how to lead or delegate or be organized or, do that, you don't put them in charge of leadership. It just won't work. Just because they're a super worker doesn't make them a supervisor. And then level 3, when we do our level 3 coaching, we use emotional intelligence. And you mentioned self-awareness. And when you become better and better at understanding self, you become better and better at engaging others as a leader. So we use Emotional Intelligence 2.0. It's a really, really fun assessment. It's super short, and it teaches you 4 things, 2 categories in self versus social. So the first is self-awareness. Second is self-management. Third is social awareness. Fourth is relationship management. And everything we do with our team and leadership is about relationship management. If you're going to influence others, you got to be in a relationship with them. You can't influence if you're not in a relationship. So, and this is the hard part about putting an office manager in charge who isn't normally there and going, hey, you tell the assistant what to do. You're in a totally different department. How do you do that? And that might not be the style you might have a clinical lead and administrative lead.
That's what we had.
Yeah, I think that's a safer bet. It's a better way to go. And it's a way to, I think, just neutralize the tension of just a hierarchy, a dictatorship, and well, who are you to tell me what to do? You just joined the practice 2 months ago. You've never worked in dentistry and you're going to tell me what to do. And it creates this tension. Right. And setting that up is super important.
So we had a $2.5 million practice. And we had a COO, we had a front desk administrator, and a clinical supervisor. And the COO, the front desk admin, and the clinical supervisor met once a week. Not with me.
Communication.
I didn't need to be there.
Yeah.
But they got things done. And it's a corporate structure that most dentists who start off small, this practice I was talking about today started off with a doc, a dental assistant, a front desk person, 3 people. Communication's easy.
Yeah.
Right? But now they have, 3 front desk people. They have, 3 clinical assistants, and they're looking to add a satellite. But yet they didn't solidify the foundation required to make that happen. But again, so today I had this conversation with the new office manager. So great person who's going to help make it all happen. But there's a lot of undoing that needs to happen too, and that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
So I was looking at my grandson's strengths, by the way. So
oh, good, you pulled him up. Awesome. How old is he?
He's 15.
Okay. And what are his top 5?
Analytical, competitive, deliberative, consistency, and significance.
Hold on. What was number 3?
Deliberative.
Competitive is number 2. So competition is really tough. So he's probably like a CD personality type, analytical, left brain would be my guess. And he likes research. He likes to study. He likes good grades, right? He likes that challenge.
Yep.
So let's jump into this real quick. This is fun. So let me get to my strengths notes because it's impossible to memorize all 34 of them. I gotta say, um, it just is. So let's go here. Where is it? I have a client who's high D personality type, results oriented, and competitive is his number one. And so what happens is he ends up not being able to really relate because he's always in competition with everybody, even his own team. And so it's tough. So analytical, that is just like it sounds, research and a thinker. Competitive, we already brought that up. Strive to win, loves contests. Deliberative, serious in making decisions to anticipate obstacles. So they're analyzing to say, not just to think like, how could this go, but they're anticipating obstacles. That's really important to have on your team.
So it's interesting. So I used the desk, and we also used something that's no longer available called the Team Dimensions Profile. And that divided also four categories: creator, advancer, executor, and refiner.
Mm-hmm.
So the creator is the
Visionary,
analytical, future thinking entrepreneur. Advancer, which is the most, which is the rarest, is the person who sees the way to make things happen.
Mm-hmm.
So the creator thinks of what can be done, but the advancer sees the way that that can be done.
Mm-hmm.
The executor does it.
Mm.
The refiner looks at all the problems.
Mm.
And we've all met people like that. You know, you come up with an idea and they say, well, let me tell you why that won't work.
Yes.
But the at least the theory was, the guy who invented this was a guy by the name of Alan Fadden, Fadden, great guy. And what he said was that the prototypical CEO is a combination of creator and refiner, thinking of the big picture in the future, but anticipating the problems. Because if you don't, you're right. If you're thinking about the future and you're not anticipating problems, you wind up falling into pits.
Mm-hmm.
Not cool.
Yeah.
So
yeah. So what did what did your grandson test out with that?
So with what? With that?
Did he take that? Did he take
No, it's not available.
It's not available anymore. Okay. Yeah. So you can see how all of this relates. Consistency. Even when you look at consistency, it actually has a task orientedness to it. It says routine, rules, procedures, and then significance. This is where his ability to be an outspoken individual. This is actually an I characteristic: impact, influence, even performer. Yep. So I want to make a difference. I feel like that's what that's stating. Yes. That's a really cool top 5. So when you take the Strength Finder, it'll give you this thing called the Insights page. You'll have your top 5.
Yeah, I have it.
Yeah, based upon those 5, like his order. So somebody else can have a different top 5. The same top 5, but in a different order. And that Insight page will read differently. And
so what's interesting,
it's about the order.
They give him the next 5 too.
Yeah.
So in the next 5, achiever, adaptability, harmony, intellection, and input.
Yeah.
But also fairly consistent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it's interesting how harmony and competition are in the top 10.
Yeah.
And can sometimes be in conflict with.
Yes, I want to win. I want to win the prize. I want to be the first one done. Like the dentist I was working with today, he said, how competition showed up as an adolescent was I'd close my math book first. I would turn my assignment in first. Not only would it be right, but I would get it done first. Everybody else, and nobody else knows they're in competition with you. It's funny. Yeah. So that'd be interesting to see how that plays out. So how this relates to dentists and team members listening is when you have everyone's top 5 strengths posted and you understand everyone operates, you speak through that with them. They launch in that. They have an understanding of how each other works better. So now they're not looking at people going, "Oh my gosh, they're so different than me. They're so frustrating. Why do we work so differently?" Instead, you look at it and go, "Oh my gosh, this is the perfect project for Becky. She would be phenomenal with this, and she'd probably love to do it." That's how you have to look at these. So in 2023, if you're looking at setting goals like, "Hey, I want to be insurance independent," like so many clients are right now, you want to know how to raise your fees. You got to have a planner. You got to have somebody who knows how to do this. You got to have a launcher. You got to have somebody who can launch this into place. You got to have somebody who can execute the plan, your whole team. And then you got to refine it. You got to be able to look back and look at it, evaluate it, measure and say, "Oh, is it working?" Lag measures are there, but that should help you change your lead measures. And I think your team should be involved in this planning part too.
Well, I think they have to be involved.
Mm-hmm.
I gave a lecture. I used to lecture for Sorona, and I gave a lecture for them at one of the national meetings about how to choose a panoramic unit. And I quoted a study from the University of Michigan about how gender impacts technology. Not politically correct today, but the study was done probably 10 years ago. And what they said was, in general, men will look at all the possible things that the technology can do. And women in general will look and see how easy it is to do it.
Can we do it?
Much more practical.
Mm-hmm.
So I said that, at the time, again, this was 15 years ago, 10 years ago, whatever it was. Still, I mean, most practices are owned by men and most staff are women.
Run by women. Yeah.
Okay. You're a man. You're going to buy a new, $150,000 CBCT.
Look at all the things it does.
Yeah. And you buy it at the convention that you go to and you then bring it back into your office and tell the women, "Okay, here it is.
Go for it."
Don't do that. If I'm doing this, I'm bringing the team that's going to be using it, because the doctors usually aren't even the ones using it. Bring the team that's going to use it into the conference, the convention, and let's say, "Okay, let's take a look at it. What do you think?" And they will come up with things in particular machines that you'll never think about. So the idea is, yes, you want to involve key players with one caveat. And this is where knowing your team is important. If you have a refiner on your team, if you have that person who is like, "Well, let me tell you why that's not going to work," right? You meet with that person before the meeting. That's a one-on-one conversation. Because if that person, again, depending on the status of that person within the group, that person can sabotage anything you want to do. So I would meet with that person before and said, "Okay, listen, I'm going to be discussing this idea. I want you to tell me what you think the roadblocks are going to be, so that when we discuss it with the team, you're on board."
100%. Yes, agreed. Absolutely.
You
You bring up a great point with just one-on-ones. And so for those listening, just know that our belief is that you're spending at least 15 minutes a month. It's ideal, 15 minutes a month meeting with your one-on-one agenda to make sure that you're in communication with them, you develop a relationship with them, and you're helping them grow. Again, back to growth. I think it's the number one factor that as coaches we deal with. When you're a business owner, you just think, "Go do your job." The problem is people get bored with that. They see challenge and they go, we can't do that. Show us how. Provide growth opportunities for us. And you're pointing out a good example. If you have a thermostat on your team, right? Somebody who dictates the temperature, you really got to check with them and say, this is where we want to set the temperature right here. Let's be on a team and do this together. Yeah. You really can't be held hostage in your own practice with growth. And if you don't have the ability to have that meeting with those trendsetters, it can be really frustrating. So other ideas on growth for 2023?
So, I think that the challenge of going from a PPO dependent to a PPO independent practice should not be underestimated. It's not a matter of joining a membership plan. Having a membership plan. It's not just giving people options. It's really treating people differently.
Yes.
And I told you, so I'm way too involved in the medical system right now. But it's enlightening because I see what happens. And medical in general, unless you're dealing with concierge, medical is all insurance driven.
Yep.
Insurance driven. Which is one of the reasons, by the way, that I very rarely hire people from
medical
and specifically a hospital.
Yeah. Well, especially those that ran insurance too, like process insurance administratively into dental. Yeah.
Right. So there's no relationship. I mean, I went to someone this morning.
Yeah.
I mean, the only person whose name I know was the doctor.
Yeah.
And because I've seen her a couple of times.
And she was wearing a name tag.
So I don't know.
Maybe embroidered in the lab coat or something, maybe. Or it's her office.
So, but the person who greeted me, who was like, oh, here, come here. Let me make sure your insurance is up to date. Right. I don't know her name. I didn't know the name of the person who brought me into, I didn't know anybody's name.
Yeah.
And it seems simple, but everything is, they run on time, give them credit. But it's quick. And there's no time for relationships.
Yeah. Did you ever learn how many patients the typical physician schedules per hour? Has that ever been shared with you?
So I would tell you that I treated hundreds of physicians. So I had lots of conversations about that. So a typical, say, dermatologist will see 60 patients a day.
Yeah, that's crazy.
How many hours you work? What's that about?
Yeah.
Every 8 minutes? It's crazy.
Wow. Yeah. I've heard even upward, depending on how busy the clinic is, could be 30 patients an hour. Just nuts. And they're hoping people don't show up because they can't operate at that function. That they can't function at that level of operation. It's too hard. So it's sad, actually. We got to be careful that dentistry doesn't fall into that. So I think a great way to grow in 2023 is to correctly know how to resign from PPO. But you're right. They have to have a relationship with their patients. You can't just follow the money and go, hey, we're doing this and send a letter. You will fail at this. You'll regret it. Yeah.
So I think that's the key. I think the key is differentiation. So you need to differentiate yourself from other healthcare providers, not just dentists, but all healthcare providers. So that, right. So that, and it could be, one of those can be relationships. Another can be the patient experience.
The wow factor. I just typed that out. Yep.
Um, and that has to preclude your switching.
That's right. You can't do it after the fact because they're not willing to stick around for that to find
No,
out. Well, let me stick around and see what it's gonna be like afterwards. You got to bite the bullet early on, and you got to roll out the red carpet, raving fans it before you ever get there. Yeah.
right. I mean, look, Disney has tremendous price flexibility with their theme parks. They raise their price almost at will with little blowback
Yep.
because they've done everything. I mean, you get treated well in Disney. So I'm gonna pause this.
Yep.
And I have to take this. So I see a concierge doc.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's a huge difference.
And so let me ask you a question. Does that mean that he's in network? Yeah. But you have a different sense of experience that you're wanting to do. I'm curious in the medical part. So you pay for your medical services. Do they bill your insurance at all?
Yes.
And then your insurance check comes to you.
Yes.
That's good. Well, at least you get that part. Some of these medical doctors, they won't even do that part. They'll just take cash and that's it.
So, and then it's up to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So there's no one that I go to that's like that.
Mm.
I go to a couple of docs that I pay them,
And you get
and then
reimbursed.
I'll get reimbursed from, and I'm in a position where I don't care.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
you're after the quality. I saw a statistic. It was how'd that go? 15% of people are looking for cheap. 5% of people are looking for expensive. They think expensive means the best. And 80% of the people are looking for value.
So I use the analogy. There's no one who gets on a plane and walks through business or first class that really doesn't want to go to first class or business. Yeah. And you're going to get to the same destination,
mm-hmm.
right? And you're going to get there the same time.
Yeah.
So, but
the experience.
We like first class, but what does first class mean? What does first class in a dental practice really mean?
What does it look like? Yeah.
And the challenge, part of the challenge, and I think we've spoken about this in the past, is that sometimes the doctors don't know what that means. Because I had a great experience once. So I used to teach the course in local anesthesia. And it was in the 90s, I think, that I realized that I wonder how many of these kids have really even had a dental injection. So I did a poll. 90% of them had never had a dental injection because most of them were caries free.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. You don't. So you don't know. So I made them. Do you remember Marathon Man? Oh, right. Okay. So we're of different generations. So it's anybody of my generation. I know it was an Oscar-winning movie.
Okay.
With Dustin Hoffman and anyway, great movie. But the villain is a dentist. Typical, right? We don't have a great reputation. So I made everybody watch the movie because I said to them, I mean, it's scary. It's sort of like what Jaws is to the ocean, Marathon Man was to dentistry. So I, I said, I
Here's your
said,
perception of what the public sees.
there's going to be a question on the final exam about Marathon Man.
Yeah.
You need to watch it because everybody my age who are going to be your patients. I mean, look around at the people who didn't who raised their hand. There aren't that many of them.
Can't relate.
That tells you
Yeah.
that they're not going to be your patients.
Yeah.
The patients are going to be baby boomers, and they've already seen this movie. You need to understand why they're going to be
Their perspective. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Right?
Well, and just I think in wrapping up here, I want to do a review. Growth in 2023 means growth. What are your goals? And then think about that. Focus on it. Get your team on board with it. Make sure they understand how to strategize. Make sure they know the goal action plan. Review those goals. Measure that. Have someone you're working with to create growth. Whether it's clinical or non-clinical, the soft skills, the human skills, and have a coach, have somebody that can help you implement this sort of stuff. I love reading books. That's where I get my growth from. I love meeting with other coaches. That's where I get my growth from. I love Strength Finder, love emotional intelligence. So attend a seminar. All Star is doing our summit, our growth summit. It's actually called Growth. Look at that, Growth Summit in May in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. 2 days for your whole team on how to grow in communication with your patients. I mean, there's plenty of ways out there. You've got a new book on the referral magnet, right? So there's great ways for you to create growth with your team. You just got to sit down and plan it out. It's not going to happen on accident.
That's right.
Yeah, be on purpose about it. Well, thank you, Dr. Goldberg. Appreciate your time this month.
Thank you, Eric, and have a wonderful Christmas.
Happy holidays. Yes.
You know what? Screw the holiday. It's Christmas. I have no problem with somebody wishing me a Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Merry
Love
Christmas.
it. Love it.
All right.